And I think I pulled it all off. This is a brand new attempt at doing this the right way and doing it a better way. Hey, everybody, this is Teddy Burriss. Let's go live now with my special guest and my co-host. Good to have everybody on here. Where's my camera? You're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy, and we're doing something brand new. We are ever so grateful to have our new sponsor, our newest sponsor to join us. That is the Elder Law Firm out of Greensboro, North Carolina. Elder Law is all about helping people with, helping their loved ones as they transition through life and elder care and estate planning. So if you have any needs or interest in conversations about elder care or estate planning, look up Elder Care Law Firm in Greensboro, North Carolina, 336-396-4551, or simply Google elderlawfirm.com. So cool, good stuff. So hey, everybody. Kea, did you get a decent night's sleep last night?
I did, thankfully. Yes, thank you.
I'm going to introduce you to our audience in a minute after I have my sub back up, always available to be there, sub co-host, introduce herself to our audience, and then I'll take it after that, Leslie.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Leslie Stees. I am the understudy for Randy. I actually just started a new job. I work for a Legacy Benefit Solutions and do client services and talent services for them. And I'm happy to be here today.
Cool. And I appreciate you jumping in and covering for Randy when he goes running off in his little extravaganza events that he does. I don't think I
That's
understand.
Right.
But, we're grateful he's at Leadership Winston-Salem, which is a great nonprofit. And so it's a good thing for him to be a part of. Hey, for those who don't know me, I'm Teddy Burriss. I'm a LinkedIn strategist, trainer, and coach. Work for a company called Burriss Consulting. That would be my wife. She's downstairs. We're all about helping people master the use of LinkedIn and Sales Navigator as a business tool. Carlos, good to see you on here. And Kea Duggan is our special guest today. And Kea has a practice up in Portland, Oregon area. Actually, it's not Portland, Oregon, but it's just northwest of Portland. Kea is an award-winning entrepreneur, show host, professional speaker, career strategist, and she guides leaders who want to be courageous to become courageous and overcome fear. And you know what, Kea, you could do this better than I. Say hello to our audience and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for joining. Randy, or Teddy. See, you got Randy in my brain now. Teddy. Teddy already did a great job of introducing me, but I'll just share some fun facts. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. You can see my Chicago picture in the background. I always like to represent wherever I am, and I really am excited to be here and talk about all things courage, because I think what we have seen right now indicates that we need courage on all fronts, especially in the workplace.
Yeah, cool stuff. I was fairly courageous yesterday, Kea. At least I thought I was. I only whimpered a little bit when I went to that dermatologist, and she said, Teddy, we should just go ahead and take that off and send it out to someone and get checked out. I didn't whimper much. I'm telling you, I was fairly courageous. So anyway, well, good. Kea, thanks for joining us. You are another one of these really, really cool people that my friend Vinny, I think Vinny is in Sacramento or that area.
Yeah.
And I'm pointing west, by the way. Vinny introduced us, and I really appreciate you joining us today. I'm looking forward to this discussion. So before we get started, let's do the housework, and that is this. Kea and I will mostly engage in conversation. We talk about some really cool stuff around courage. Leslie will be the gatekeeper. She will be the bouncer. She will be the maitre d'. Is that the right word, Leslie?
Sure.
Yeah. And so use the chat. And if you have any question or any thought you want to share, just drop it in chat. By the way you use chat is really pretty technical. A lot of people struggle with it. You bang on the keyboard. You just type on the keyboard is all you got to do. So jump into the conversation at any point that you want to, because we want to hear what your thoughts are and your ideas and your questions. So anyway, that's housekeeping. Hope you all bought your own peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So, because I'm not buying lunch today. So Kea, I get it. Courage. We aren't all born with it, are we? Sometimes we have to develop courage. What do you think?
I would agree. It's like a muscle. You don't walk into the gym and immediately start, lifting 100-pound weights, right? Like you have to start small, right? And it's a product of consistency, right? It is something that can absolutely be built and cultivated over time, but you've got to start and keep working at it. As someone that I interviewed on my own show yesterday, she was like, it works if you work it.
Yeah. Before we get too deep into the conversation that you and I had, did I tell you that I studied that dead guy by the name of Dale Carnegie?
You did, yes.
And the one book that changed my life more than anything is not his primary book. Does anybody know? Drop in the chat if you know Dale Carnegie's #1 book, or the book that everybody refers to when they know Dale Carnegie wrote it. I'm not going to say the title because that's not the book that changed my life the most. The book that changed my life the most, relevant to courage, is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. That book blew me away. And so, and Denise is right. How to Win Friends and Influence People is also a really powerful book. Don jumped in with it. But, we've got to build that muscle. I'm with you. You got to build that muscle. And, one way you build that muscle is you just push yourself a little bit further. So let's talk a little bit about pushing ourselves a little further. Let's talk about the world that we're in today, this world of COVID. And I am not going to make light of COVID in any shape or form, because it is really something we've got to find ways to overcome, and we have to be courageous at doing this. What are your thoughts on how can people look at this a different way and integrate courage into our lives as we overcome this thing called COVID?
Yeah. Well, COVID has, it has turned our lives, it has turned the world of work upside down. And while it continues to wreak havoc, it is still an opportunity for us to really go inward and explore, what is it that is important to us? What is it that is, if there's something that we have wanted to achieve or do, or even like just take one little step on, is examining what is in the way, right? Sometimes we don't do that examination because we're worried about the feelings that will come up, what it will look like when we take a step towards something that maybe is unpopular or, doesn't make sense to someone else. And so, this is really a time that we can leverage to do that introspection and really start speaking up for what is working, what is not working, and what we need in order to set ourselves up for success. And that really is, it's probably not what people first think of when they think of courage or of being courageous, but it really is being able to name that thing. And once you do that, then you can start moving those obstacles or developing a plan to move the obstacles out of the way.
Yeah, I went to my first coffee meeting my second coffee meeting this morning, and I'm not afraid of COVID. I mean, I'm not afraid of what's it called? This new strain. What's it called? Domino or whatever. But I'm smart. At least I hope I'm smart. I protect myself, I protect others, and I try to do it as best I can. And be it thanks to me, Omicron. I think that if I'm smart about engaging with people, smart about being in public, smarter than I used to be. Let's go with those words. That can help me be more courageous and go out and do some of the things that we all want to start doing here really, really soon, and without fearing it so much. Because the fact that we fear anything slows us down from wanting to do and be successful in life. I mean, I think it's probably a huge barrier for all of us, that fear. So, careers, courage in careers. We talked about this a little bit. So, careers include, 50% of our audience are looking for a job. And that's a part of our career, have to look for a job.
Mm-hmm.
And, our career is, we're in a job and we have to grow. We have a job and maybe we should change. Maybe we want to change. So our career includes lots of spaces where courage becomes important. Can you speak a little bit about how do you apply courage in those different transitions of career?
Yeah. So for the individuals that are in a job or on a career path right now that you've gotten some level of indication that it is not for you, one piece of, courage building is, as I said just a moment ago, is to first say, this is not working for me. I can think of my own career path. My first career that I'm quote unquote retired from, I had a marketing career for over 20 years. And I knew really early on that it was not for me. And I had tons of perks. I had great clients. I worked with amazing people, both on the client side, but then at my own agency. But I knew really early in my career that it wasn't for me. And I just kind of kept it inside. It kind of burned my soul a little bit. And it wasn't until I was at happy hour with my dad. And I was saying to him, I was just kind of complaining and kind of crying in my beer. And he was like, you could do something different. Maybe it's time for you to start your own business. And while starting your own business is not for everyone, I'm sharing this to say that sometimes we don't realize that we have options. We feel like I did. I thought, okay, I'm supposed to go to college. I get my degree in this thing, and I worked that job until I retire. That was the formula that I thought I had to follow. And there's this thing called the tyranny of the shoulds, where you are constantly doing that bargaining with yourself of, well, this is what I actually want. This is what my actual ideal self wants. This is what my current reality is. And then you're doing this bargaining with the world of wanting to not disappoint people. And that tyranny is often what keeps us stuck in a career path or in a job, because you're afraid of looking ungrateful. You're afraid of, making a mistake. What if I make the wrong decision? You're afraid of, like I said, disappointing others, people who you're trying to please, in other words. So if you're in a career, in a job, on a career path that doesn't feel great, that's your first step, is identifying this isn't working.
Yeah.
Now, and then making the decision to look at what else could I be doing? What else do I enjoy? What do I get excitement and energy from? So that's the piece for the people that are in a job that isn't working. But for the people who are searching for jobs, I think one thing that really gets in the way is the fear of reaching out and asking for help. That is one of the big hurdles that I hear some of my clients come to me with, of they're afraid of doing the networking piece. And I've gone so far as to say, okay, let's just if the word networking is the thing that's in the way, let's call it something else. Relationship building, connecting, something. But people are so deathly afraid of asking for help and looking needy. And that has become, that's a hurdle for many people. And it hinders their ability to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm thinking of shifting into this career path, or I'm interested in this company. Can you introduce me to someone? But that terrifies people to do that.
Yeah.
But it is one way, probably one of the best ways to open yourself up to and learn about new opportunities in your career. But you have to be willing to push past that fear of looking some kind of way, because what you're waiting for is on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And by not tapping into that, by letting fear be too big, you're literally blocking your blessings. You are blocking opportunities from coming your way.
Yeah. You know, I can picture the days when I had a job and my young daughters would be the flags, red flags, that I was no longer in the right job. I was addicted to the work. I was getting grumpy. I was working 80, 90, 100 hours a week. I was never home on the weekends, all that kind of chaotic stuff. I can picture 2 times in my life where those red flags were waved by 4 little girls and saying it's time for me to change. And I'm like, oh, I know I need to change, but I can't. I know I need to change, but I'm scared. And I actually remember Kea saying words to this effect that you referred to. I know I need to change, but my boss is going to be so upset if I do. And I'm like, it took me years to realize disappointing the wrong people is a huge mistake in life. And and once I started realizing that disappointing the wrong people is no longer an issue, that made it easier for me to make the right decisions. Yeah. And I get you. I hate the word networking. I mean, informational interviews, that's another phrase that people are, hate to do because they're fearful that it won't get them good results. And that's why I use this phrase. It's just
it all starts with a conversation.
Just two
That's
people
right.
chatting. And so if they could, if we collectively, not just they, but we could find ways to overcome some of those barriers that really aren't real barriers, man,
That's right.
Our lives could collectively be much richer. And
Teddy, I'm so glad that you said that, the quote unquote, the real barrier, right? Like there is so much information out there that can really leverage what you have on your wall of it all starts with a conversation. Like be human about it. Be like, if there's someone that you are really itching to connect with, take a look at their LinkedIn profile. What are they liking? What are they posting about? What do they do? If there is something, if you have a genuine interest, let that be the way that you open the door of just sending them a message to say, hey, I saw that you like these kinds of posts, or I saw that you posted about this. Would really love to hear your thoughts on that. And that's how it starts. You don't have to go right in and say, I need a job. Can you connect me with someone? Can you take my resume and give it to someone? Don't start there. Start as a human being. How would you want someone to reach out to you? And when you take those barriers off, then that can help to take down the temperature on the fear that you have of being rejected, of making a mistake, of saying the wrong thing.
Yeah. And I'll offer to you that, again, I told you the book that changed my life the most was How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And there's a quote in there from Dale Carnegie that he says, and I think many others have said this as well, that 99% of the stuff that we worry about never freaking happens. I don't know if Dale used the word freaking, but 99% of the stuff we're worried about may happen. I can't go network with that guy because he's going to tell me no. I can't call that guy because he puts his pants on different than I do. So Leslie, I got something to add?
I don't have anything to add. There are a few questions that came through.
Go ahead.
Okay. The first one is, Kea, do you have any favorite resources or exercises to help aid the research and process of making a career pivot?
So yes. And in fact, I have a worksheet that I give to my clients. I'd be happy to share that. But, really So Googling, and I don't mean to be like dismissive here, but really there, especially because of the Great Resignation, there is so much content out there about steps that you can take to start thinking about a pivot, right? Like you don't have to do it right away, but certainly steps that you can take. But again, I'd be happy to share a little worksheet that that I share with my clients to support that.
Yeah, good stuff. So
there's one more.
Yeah.
What do you do when HR keeps rejecting you internally when you know you meet the qualification?
Was it, did you say when you meet the qualification?
Yeah. You know you meet the qualification, but HR keeps rejecting you.
Ooh. So I want to dig, and maybe this person can drop it into the chat. So is this at a company that you're interested in joining, or are you inside and trying to make a shift internally? If you can drop that into the chat.
Yeah. I think it's
Looks
trying.
Like that's, Lisa.
I think it's externally trying to get in.
Okay.
I think.
So one thing that I would suggest then is if you are and this is kind of like a little backdooring, but if you either, besides the HR person, if you know someone else on the inside, or if you can make contact with the actual hiring manager, right? Because HR is a gatekeeper, right? I mean, they and their HR departments, recruiters, they are so overwhelmed, right? So there's a statistic that HR managers, recruiters, talent recruitment, they're only spending somewhere between 6 and 12 seconds looking at your resume. Mm-hmm. And so if they don't see something that exactly fits the list that they have, that they're trying to check the boxes on, they're going to move you into the no or maybe pile. So, but if you know that you meet the qualifications, see if you can get in contact with someone else on the inside. And I started talking about this and I got off track. The hiring manager, the person that you would be reporting to directly. And if you can get to them and just share, hey, I'm really interested in this role, and very briefly, but very, very concisely share what it is that you know for a fact that meets the needs of that particular role, and just be able to highlight that for them, that can help to grease the skids and get past that gatekeeper so that the person who's actually going to be working with you can say, hey, Susie Q in HR, I really like this candidate. Let's move them forward to a phone interview.
So I misled you, and that's a great story, a great message for those of us who are in that channel. Lisa's question was different than I thought. She is in the organization trying to get into a different department, but I would wager, Kea, that it's the same answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's easier
Absolutely.
in some respects because you have that person's phone number, you have their email address,
mm-hmm.
you know what office they're in. So you could muster up the courage. Is that the right phrase? Muster up? I got to go Google what's that mean? and call that hiring manager and have a conversation. Look, I want to understand what, it might be if you know the person in the department, you can say, look, I would love to be a part of your team. What do I need to do to be able to meet your qualifications so I could become a part of your team?
Yeah. Alternatively, or to add to that, I love that, Teddy. Lisa, another thing that you could do as you're trying to be in conversation with the hiring manager, another thing that you could do, or another approach that you could take, rather, is interview them. Like literally turn the table and say, hey, I know that you're looking to fill this role. What is it that's missing? Who would be the ideal person for you? And so make them tell you what they need, what they're seeking, what would make their life easier, what would make it easier for them to sleep at night. Get those problems identified, and then you can come in and say, I thought a lot about our conversation, and I really do feel like I can be the solution to your problems. Here's why. And then, highlight some of the accomplishments and the wins, the results that you've had in your current role that match up with or that can be transferable for the new role that you're wanting to transition into.
So let's look at courage at another perspective in this context, because it's only so much pain your forehead can take as you bang it up against the wall trying to achieve something that you've tried all kinds of tactics to achieve and it ain't happening. So I wonder, what's the flag to us to say we've got to use our courage to focus our efforts on another area and stop going down this route? Because I've tried all the things that I can think of and all the things that have been suggested, and it ain't hunting. So how do we muster up the courage to make a pivot and say, I'm not looking that way anymore?
Right. So the first, and I feel like the most important thing, is to pay attention what's happening in your body, because your body is infinitely more wise than our brains are. Our bodies send more messages to our brain than our brain sends to the rest of our body. And if you can tune into, like, if you feel a pit in your stomach, if your chest is tightening up, if you are not sleeping consistently, if you are having, GI issues, massive headaches, these are signs that your body is warning you, hey, we are coming to a dead end on this. You have got to make a decision or else. And I'm kind of speaking about this and to this from a personal situation that I had. I was in a job, and I love this job. So I want to make that clear. I loved this job. It was awesome. And also there was something else that was calling me, but I was pushing myself because I was afraid of what it would look like if I started taking my foot off the gas pedal. I was afraid of what it would look like if I, asked for more time for this new thing that I wanted to step into, which happened to be my coaching career. And then at this particular job, we were in the busiest time of the year, and I was having all these instances where my values were being challenged. I didn't feel like I was being heard or respected. But I kept pushing forward because that's what a good little worker does. And I started noticing that I was having tingles in my face, but I was just like, oh, that's probably nothing, whatever. I'm just going to keep doing the thing. And I came back to work on a Monday. I was typing an email and I knew something was wrong. And in the very next instant, the entire left side of my head, face, and arm went numb. And it wasn't a stroke, thank goodness, but I went to the doctor, and after extensive physical and, kind of verbal examination, he was like, this is a panic attack. He's like, you're having a severe anxiety attack because you have pushed yourself to your limits. Your body is so overstressed, and it's saying it's time for you to make a new decision. So I don't want anyone else to push themselves to that point of trying to force themselves into a role, into a career path that doesn't work for them anymore. So your body is a great cue.
A big, powerful messenger that we have to pay attention to. Hey, after we're at the bottom of the hour, we come out of this ad spot, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. So, hey, everybody, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. Randy's out today, and our diligent, always available special co-host Leslie Spees is filling in for Randy today. Our special guest today is Kea Duggan, and the conversation is Courage in Your Career. And Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy is sponsored in part by the Elder Law Firm out of Greensboro, North Carolina. Elder Law Firm helps you with the right estate planning to protect what matters most for you. If you have a need for estate planning or elder care, reach out to the Elder Law Firm in Greensboro, 336-396-4551. And again, we appreciate them being a sponsor of our show this in January, our first 2022 sponsor. Kea, I went to the hospital thinking I was dying, thinking I was having a heart attack. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, I was not unlike your story. And I was in a car riding down the road, rushing from site to site and company to company and client to client. And all of a sudden I fell out in a hot sweat. I mean, literally be just soaking wet. And I don't get soaking wet in an air conditioned car. And I was freaking out. I mean, I felt my chest going boom, boom, boom. You know, I could feel it beating in my dew walkers up here. I went to the hospital thinking I was having a heart attack. Nope. Panic attack. Stress. And I will never forget when this is the second career change I made. I'll never forget when that doctor told me, if you don't quit this job, it's going to kill you. I remember that day. I mean, you know, I'm fortunate that I figured that out, you know, then, and have never put myself in that situation ever again. But you know, we have to have the courage to listen to our bodies, and we have to make it. We only get one ride with this thing. So, you know, we can't destroy it, you know?
Yeah. So important.
Leslie, any thoughts? Have you ever seen that or experienced that kind of trauma is what I want to call it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Have had that. My mom passed away this year and had a traumatic experience over that. So, definitely have. I do have a comment just to kind of add to what we've been talking about. The last few jobs that I have had were actually not jobs. I reached out to companies and, you know, just kind of presented, have you ever thought about, or, you know, is this a need for your organization? And they have created a job. So don't be afraid to do that. I'm not a salesperson at all. But I've always, you know, had the courage to do that kind of thing, and it's served me well.
Yeah. I'm with you, Leslie.
You did that, Leslie.
Yeah. I mean, that is a powerful way to look. What's the name of the book? Here's the name of the book. If you've not read this book, I recommend that everybody read this book. Designing Your Life. Because if you don't design your life, somebody else will. If you don't make decisions about where you want to go and how you're going to get there, somebody else will. And let me tell you, that's another, that takes a lot of courage, a whole lot of courage. And I'm not saying I'm good at it. Good Lord, I know I'm not good at it, but I've gotten better at it. So really is an important idea to have in your mind, a philosophy to live by is design your life to the best of your ability. So,
And to remember that, you know, we're always evolving, right? Like, let's have grace with ourselves and for ourselves, knowing that we are still, you know, living in a world, having a human experience. We're not in a vacuum, and there's going to be all these inputs and instances that happen that are going to kick us off track. And just knowing that you can get back on, that you can make a different decision. These are all things that are really, really important, and they're very brave and can truly shift the course of your life and career.
Yeah, and I would wager, Kea, that you can speak to this a little bit. I mean, you got to have courage to decide you want to leave a job. You have to have courage to decide you want to take a different job than you've ever had before. But you also have to have courage. You got to find a way to build this courage if you don't have it, to stay in a job that you know is the right stepping stone for you to be in. I mean, I might be working on making up stories here because I was sleeping with this woman for 43 years. You might be working for a witch, you know, and you like, I mean, I can't stand working for this witch, but you know that it's a step. What are your thoughts about that amount of courage or style?
And you read my mind, Teddy, because I was thinking about that. Sometimes in the face of what appears to be the signal to leave, And this is where like really tuning in with yourself and what you need for your life, what you want for your life and career is crucial. But yes, sometimes there is an experience that you still need to have at a particular job before you can be ready to move on to the next thing. And so if that is the case, yes, it absolutely is courageous, because you might be getting, comments from the peanut gallery saying, hey, you should quit that job. That sucks. They're not, and it's being able to tune that out to say, I am here in this role because I need to get this. I need to get this one thing, right? And it's easier because I'm here, and it's easier because I'm still able to pay my bills and do what I need to do. And then when I get this thing, then I will have an exit plan, or I will put my exit plan into place. So if that is the case, then make the most of your experience. Be clear on what it is that you still need to gather. What are the moments where you have felt in the zone when you feel rewarded and fulfilled? Tune into that. And as Leslie said, go to your manager, go to your team and say, hey, this is something that really gives me energy, and I know it'll be a benefit to the company or to the team or to this project. I would love to prioritize my time. Can you help me with that? Right. And then, ask for what you need. Yeah. The worst that can be said is no. And then you find another way to do it. But yeah, sometimes the courage comes from admitting that right now, this experience that I'm having is the experience that I need to have. So how can I make the best of it?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I got to be careful of my telling too many stories and not uncovering names I don't want to uncover. But I worked for an organization many years ago that if I had really thought about it better, I would not have gone to work for them. Now, I went to work for this company, and when I realized that I really didn't want to be here, I stayed. And here's why. Because I was learning to become a salesman. I was becoming better at being a salesman. And I was developing these sales skills that I have to have, that I knew I needed to have back then. I knew I needed to have these skills in order for me to start this, multi-billion-dollar business I have in my mind. And so I toughed it out for 2 or 3 years, knowing that I was developing skills that I needed to have, and knowing that these skills were far more important than the pressure I was getting to dealing with this person, this company I didn't want to deal with. So yeah, I had to muster up. It wasn't hard, but I had to muster up the courage to stay there and keep getting my development. So yeah. Good stuff. So, and Denise shared and publicly on the show. Thanks, Denise, for sharing this. She retired a year ago, and mostly because she realized the job she was in was not the right job for her, and it was stressful. And fortunately, Denise was able to pull that trigger and go retire. And she still shows up and hangs out with me. I love it. So cool. Let's go to another topic. Or another point that you and I talked about. Let's talk about the impact. And I think you've already touched on it a little bit. The impact of not being courageous, the impact on ourselves, but not only our physical bodies, but our mental selves and our spiritual selves, and maybe even our families, if we're not courageous to make a change we should make. What do you think, Kea?
So yes, and the impacts may feel isolated, but it does ripple out. And I remember so many times, when I was in that job that, like I said, I love, but was stressing me out. And my husband, when my doctor was like, you need to make a decision, my husband was like, I support you in what you need to do, because it's going to shift your feelings about yourself. It's going to shift what's going on in our home life. So it does have ripple effects, even if you think it's isolated and contained to just you. But some of the impacts of not being courageous just within yourself is it can really eat away at your self-esteem, your feelings of self-confidence, right? Because if you know in the back of your mind, I really want to be doing this, or I really want to, make a different choice, but I can't, or I won't because I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of what it's going to look like. I'm afraid of what it's going to feel like. What if I fail? What if I make a wrong decision? And that kind of like internal rumination can really chip away at your self-confidence. Mm-hmm. And it can then, when you do make the decision to move forward, to shift careers, to let go of a relationship, whatever it is, it can then present another barrier when you get ready to do that, because then you start thinking, well, they probably don't want to talk to me. Why would they give time to me? So it's just like, it just breeds more hits to your self-esteem and your self-confidence. So when you keep doing that and dismissing what you want over, or a period of time consistently, it's just chipping away at your self-esteem. But similar to that, by not being courageous and making the new decision, making a different decision, it can also chip away at your competence, right? And there is this psychological term of the competence-confidence loop, where when you take a step forward and you see that, things didn't fall apart, then that builds up motivation. And then you're like, okay, well, that worked. Let me do the next thing. And so when you're repeatedly not taking steps forward, when you're too afraid to take steps forward, then it reduces your opportunities to build skills, to build acuity, to do that thing that you want to do next, or to, make that connection or start that conversation with someone who's doing what you want to be doing. So that is certainly one way or two ways that it can, by not being courageous, how it impacts you in your spirit.
Yeah. And I can testify to how not being courageous and letting it all bottle up and swell up, it can impact my family. Like, again, I talk about those 4 daughters that I'll never forget. The one time I came back from Vegas. For those who don't know, I used to work for Vegas. If you want to know what kind of work I did in Vegas, you'll have to privately message me and ask that question. But I worked in Vegas. I came home one weekend and my daughters said to my wife, I don't like Dad anymore. Mostly because I was so wrapped up in my world that I was missing being a part of their world. And I remember this. That was a really hard smack in my that I took to heart. Leslie, you got one that came up?
Yeah, we do. So we're discussing courage in the context of a job with a company. How is it different when you're self-employed or have your own business?
Oh, wait a minute. He's setting you up for this conversation.
Oh boy. I mean, so this could be a whole other conversation, because as someone who is self-employed, and Teddy, I know you are as well. This is, so I will share a recent situation. Literally on Sunday, so just 3 days ago, I was like getting ready for the week, getting ready to set up, the structure for my week. And I started feeling like my chest getting tight. I talked about this earlier, and I started feeling like really this agitation and this anger coming up, because I'm looking at all the things on my list, and I was like, how am I going to do all this? And which comes first? And what about this? And it brought me to tears. It brought me to tears, because when I really unpacked what was going on, I also realized that I was afraid that I wasn't doing things the right way. That I was like, that some talking head somewhere had said, oh, in order to be successful, you need to do this, this, and this, and it has to be in this order, and you have to label yourself this way. And I realized that kind of secretly I was painting myself into that corner, and it created so much angst and worry. And, you know, as a recovering type A perfectionist, I'm, you know, that's part of my personality is, oh, I want to do things the right way. I don't want to make a mistake. If I don't take this step, then things aren't going to work out. And the courage for me in that moment, as my own boss, is to admit to myself that there is no one right way to do something. The only right way is my way, because my circumstances are unique. My business is unique. What I bring to the table is unique. And so being okay with, you know, pushing back the facade of what, you know, society says to do, and how I should be talking about myself, giving myself the permission to set that down and say, okay, if I were going to do this my way, how would I do it? What feels really good to me? And that's something that I know a lot of my entrepreneur friends push up against, and it creates a lot of stress and strife. And in fact, someone who I know who really is making like tens of thousands of dollars every month, her and I were talking about this, and she was like, I'm right there with you. Even she's had success, and she still runs up against that fear of, is this the right thing to do? Should I do it this way? So, you know, Donald, I would love to hear if that resonates with you, of just releasing the, releasing the pull to do things the way that others say to do them.
Yeah. And I'll add, Kea, I deal with all of that. And every day I deal with it all. I also deal with having the courage to decide that something I've been doing is not giving me the value I want, and stop. Seth Godin wrote a story, a book called The Dip. And The Dip says, in his book, he says, quit what you're doing when you're at the peak. Don't quit when you're at the bottom, because often we quit at the bottom because we're scared. Okay. He says, quit when you're at the peak. And so I can picture a couple different times in my business where there were particular divisions, I call them divisions of the business, that I'm like, you know, these are good, but these are not going to get me where I want to go. They're going to box me in a space I don't want to be in. And so knowing that having the courage to quit something that's working today, but it's not going to get you your business and you to where you want to go, is important. On the flip side of that, having the courage to keep plowing forward. This has been a big one for me. I can picture many, many times in my business where I started thinking about looking for a job. I'm like, you can't do that. I can tell you firsthand, you cannot be building a business and thinking about jumping ship. Because if you're thinking about jumping ship while you're building a business, you know what's going to happen to that ship? It's going to crash. It's going to sink. So I can picture times in my career, my business career, where I had to tell myself, stop thinking about jumping ship. Keep plowing forward, keep finding the right niche, find the right audience, find the right thing that fuels you. Because if you're not being fueled to deliver, you're not going to want to deliver. So that's a lot of courage there that's hard, again, to muster up. So Don, great question. And by the way, I think all of us should be, you know, when Don says, you know, what about those of us who are, you know, self-employed? I think even when we're working for another company, we got to think of ourselves as a business. Here's my business that I'm doing for this guy today. It's not a job, it's a business. It's a different mindset. So let's oh, by the way, you know, when I was talking about, you know, courage to stay somewhere, you reminded me when we talked about this earlier, Kea, that I had two people that I can talk about, and I won't use their names. And one is a lady who I met her back in 2000. And today she has the same job she had in 2000. And it's It's a data processing job. It's in from a distance looking in, you would think it's a very menial, not meaningful, menial job. To her, it's not. To her, she's a payroll clerk. I'm using simple words here. She's a payroll clerk, and she's much more than that. But to her, she is the person who makes sure that thousands and thousands of people are able to pay their bills and buy food for their kids. So to her, it is not a menial job. Now, to her, it's 8 hours of work, and then she goes and lives this other rich life in her community with her family. And she knows that. She says, you know, the richness here in this job for 8 hours is making sure that thousands and thousands of people can, you know, put sneakers on their kids' feet. These are her words that she used with me years ago when I interviewed her. And so that's one style of courage. She does it here. She keeps doing it. She has no desire to change because she's fulfilling a need. And then she has this greater need. Here's another person. I won't share names. This person absolutely in his entire career has never been happy with his job. But yet he continued going to the same place and doing the same work for over 30 years. And he did it because he never had the courage to look anywhere else. He was scared to death to leave that job. It paid the bills, but that was the only fulfillment it provided him. And we talked about it. He said, dude, he called me a freak. He said, you'll jump, get a new job all the time. By the way, I've only made 3 huge jumps before I made my last jump. And he said, I just never had the courage to do it. So you gotta look at yourself and ask yourself, what's the courage I have? Is my courage to stay here because it's the right thing to do? Or do I need to muster up some courage to go look for something different? So because otherwise, again, we only get one ride, Kea. You know?
Yeah.
So.
And, you know, and if I could add to that, Teddy, you know, about this gentleman that stayed in this job that he didn't enjoy for 30 years, you know, for the people that are earlier in this, you know, thinking about making a shift, which, you know, any moment is the right moment to make a shift if that's what you want, right? But, you know, when the fear starts to or feels more important than the end goal, then that's a great moment and a signal that you have to ask yourself, what is the cost to me of staying exactly where I am? What is the cost to me, my life, my confidence, my family, you know, my network? What is the cost of not taking action on this thing, this idea, this vision that I have? What's the best case scenario? Then the next question you could ask is, what's the best case scenario? What is the best possible outcome for me if I do make this shift?
Yep.
And you know, our brains are set up that we go to the negativity bias, right? Like that is like, you know, our brains have not evolved much from prehistoric times. And so we default to the negativity. We default to the danger because our brains want to keep us safe, right? But you can still explore possibility in a safe setting without having to actually pull the trigger on anything just yet.
Yep.
So it's important to think about some of those scenarios if you're feeling like fear is getting to be too big of a thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm with you. You got to, there's 2 answers that I remind myself every day. I've got to look at it and do that analysis. Is the risk greater for me to stay, or is the risk greater for me to leave? Or is the risk less for me to stay, or is the risk less for me to leave? You know, what's the opportunity? What's the upside opportunity is another way I look at it too. And the other thing too is I know firsthand, and I would wager that you can testify this as yourself, that you can't make these decisions in a bubble. You can't make these decisions on your couch or in your bed or sitting on a toilet holding a cell phone. you got to make these decisions again by getting into conversations with people and listening to ideas and stories that others had. So cool stuff. Cool stuff. Leslie, anything else?
Can't think of anything. I don't see any other questions either.
Yeah. So cool stuff. Kea, this is good. I believe there's a whole lot more conversation that we had planned, but we really went deep into in a couple of those points. So thank you very much. Give me one or two really solid takeaways that our audience should make sure they take with them.
The first is, if you are feeling like fear is too big, if it's too important, don't run away from it. Instead, name it and claim it so that you can tame it. And I did not make that up. I heard it in another talk that I gave, and I was like, hey, can I steal that? But it is so, it's great, right? It's simple. If you are feeling that fear popping up, that is a sign that it's time for you to shine a light on it so that you can do something about it. And then I think the other takeaway is to ask yourself then, what is the cost of not taking a step forward? What is the cost to you of not doing it?
I get it. I like that. I like name it, claim it, tackle it. Is that what you said?
Tame it.
Name it. Claim it.
Claim it and tame it.
Tame it. Yeah.
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah. And by the way, thank you. Because by the way, if anybody wants to name their challenge or name the fear that they have that they want to overcome, they don't have a name, name it Cletus. And then let me know you named it Cletus. Tame it. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I went with tackle it, Kea. But I'm with tame it. Yeah.
Hey, that works. I'm just trying to keep it cutesy and rhymey.
I get it. Yeah. But name it Cletus and let me know you did that so we know that you're going to tame it. So, yeah. So good stuff. Hey, Kea, again, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Leslie, do you have a story?
Does it need to be related?
No, it can be any story you want to tell. It's your chair right now, dear.
Okay. Well, I'll share a story that I mentioned when I introduced myself that I recently changed jobs. So I was in a job the end of last year that was no longer serving me well, and made the decision without having a definite option in place to go ahead and make a move.
Yeah.
And after I did it, I was scared to death. Talk about a panic attack, because I need to work. I need that income.
Yeah.
But everything worked out very well. I think God had my back, but it did take some courage to do that. That's what I got.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'll tell you, I'm not making light in any way or joking about the seriousness that I mentioned when I read the book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. It changed my life because it truly did. And I'm not saying I've got it all mastered. I still worry. And I often say it's not worry, I'm just considering. But my wife's like, no, you're worrying. But that is huge. I mean, if you can learn how to tackle or tame fear, if you can learn how to muster up courage to take that next step towards your goal, it can change your life. And I don't care how old you are, it can change your life in very phenomenal ways. But you just got to be willing to get past some of that fear and take it on. So good stuff. And Kea, again, really appreciate you showing up with and playing with us today. So
my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, just on closing statement before I introduce our next speaker, I really appreciate Elder Law Firm supporting Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. We're looking for more sponsors to help us take this show to a whole nother level. So if anybody knows another firm that would be interested in doing community sponsorship to help us grow this, we love those conversations. And we, again, really do appreciate Elder Law Firm in Greensboro showing up and helping us out. Hey, next week, let's see, what is next week? The 19th, Marianne Hooser. Marianne Hooser is has a practice in the Triad of North Carolina called, she's an action coach. Marianne's going to come, and the conversation is going to be about basically, do you want to be an employee or do you want to be an employer? You have to make the decision. And it's going to be a conversation about starting your own business. And Marianne's going to talk about building momentum and building the right foundation and how to look at making systems happen that are not complicated, but help you just become successful if you decide to be an employer instead of an employee. So again, it's lunch conversations with Randy and Teddy. Our special guest today was Kea Duggan. Leslie Spees is our fill-in co-host. And Leslie, thanks a lot for showing up. You know, I got your resume. I know you want the job full time, but Randy's doing all right. So for right now,
yeah, he's a hard act to follow.
Yeah. So, all right, folks, have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.